You're tuned into Stick to FPL. On today's show, we've got
Fixture swings, what are they and what do they mean for our FPL teams?
what are the biggest mistakes people make in FPL?
Have chips lost their value?
Is football played on grass or spreadsheets?
And which international stars will miss Game Week 1? Hello and welcome back to another episode of Stick to FPL. Again, this is not the Game Week 1 episode. We're doing another pre-season episode, and today it's going to be all about strategy going into the season. So we're going to be talking about all things strategy, planning, chips, tactics, all that kind of stuff, which is going to be really, really useful throughout the season. Sim, welcome back for another episode. How are we doing today? Are we ready?
I am good. I'm ready to plan. Because those who plan, fail to plan, and those who fail to plan.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. So yes, we're going to be going through various different topics. We're going to be talking about the fixtures first of all. So let's get straight on that, because I think a big part of planning your FPL season, particularly when you're building your Game Week 1 team, is you want to have a look at those fixtures and seeing what stands out to you. And a few people have kind of been asking about fixture swings, and just what we mean by fixture swings, it's when a team goes from having good fixtures to having bad fixtures, or goes from having bad fixtures to having good fixtures, where we can kind of tag in and out these kind of players depending on how good their fixtures are, basically. So I want to start off with the Game Week 1 to 6. And by the way, guys, we've got to give a little shout out to our sponsors, Fantasy Football Hub. Now, I've been working with Fantasy Football Hub for a little while now. They're my absolute favourite fantasy football companion. Sim, you're working a little bit with Fantasy Football Hub as well.
Yes, second season working with Fantasy Football Hub. And you know what? The testament to how good Fantasy Football Hub are is, before I started making content, before I did anything like that, I was using Fantasy Football Hub.
Yes.
And it's just a brilliant tool. It gives you all the information, easy as. The Opta data I love, just because it's just at your fingertips.
Yes.
You can use it whenever you want to. You can pull it whenever you want to. You can influence it the way you want to. Not obviously influence the data, but you can pull. You can
have
pull
the power
data
to
exactly.
create your own
Story.
Yeah, I
You have
guess
the
so.
power to create your own story. No, but it's brilliant. I really love the team comparison tool. They've upgraded the UX. You can now upload a screenshot of your team and get it rated, rather than asking for team ID or manually uploading. Nobody else in the game does this stuff.
It's unreal, honestly. So massive shout out to Fantasy Football Hub for supporting the show for this season. Really, really looking forward to working with them and showing off and using some of their tools to help us create content on this channel. But our first... we're going to talk about fixtures, and the fixture data that we have today is from Fantasy Football Hub. If you guys are watching on video, you'll be able to see this on screen. If not, don't worry, we're going to talk through it a little bit, because what Fantasy Football Hub has with their fixture data is it orders fixtures in order of how good the fixtures are, basically. Who has the easiest fixtures, who has the hardest fixtures. At the top, for between Game Week 1 and 6, which is the first kind of period of fixtures I think we should talk about, Liverpool are right at the top, because Liverpool face Fulham, Brentford, Manchester United, Nottingham Forest, and Bournemouth. It's obviously like a wild fixture list there. We spoke a little bit last week about, do we want to go for Salah? Do we want to go for Trent? Looking at these fixtures, are you like worried maybe about not going for certain Liverpool players?
I'm not going to say I've changed my tune, but I've softened on my distaste for Salah and Trent. More so for Salah. I'm still not keen on Trent. But that fixture list, the hardest fixture on there, allegedly, is Manchester United away.
Yes.
Which we know damn well isn't that hard of a fixture.
We've seen Liverpool do very well in that fixture.
It's like 32-1 on aggregate or something.
it's
over the
something
last
crazy.
couple of seasons. So it's a brilliant set of fixtures. There's concerns I have, and there's things that I think can work well. Ipswich away could be a little bit trickier than people are giving them credit for.
Do you think so?
I mean, Fantasy Football Hub is also saying so, right? Because it's got an orange there next to Ipswich away, and then Brentford at home is a green fixture. So I think that Ipswich away is going to be harder than Brentford at home, which I think is fair.
It could be if, Ipswich, newly promoted team coming up back to the Premier League after 20-something years, 22 years, something like that. They're going to be up for it. And they're not going to make things easy for Liverpool either.
Yeah.
And
But
particularly under new management, you wonder if Liverpool might have a bit of an adjusting period anyway. But then, Ipswich coming up to a new league could have a similar problem themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. But it's a brilliant set of fixtures. And you know what? Like, I think going without Liverpool attackers is a big no-no. I've got Jota in my team still. But having Salah, he's going to get 4 or 5 goals at least.
I think a lot of people recognise that you would love to have Salah in your team, but it's a lot of the case it is a money thing, whether you can afford to have him and Haaland, or some people going for neither Salah or Haaland, which, to be honest, you were on that previously. I think that is still crazy.
I am still on that list. I am still on that list.
Oh, my word. I don't understand that. I think the only reason to not have Salah is if you have Haaland. And to be fair, you could have both of them. It is possible.
I disagree.
You have neither. But different people have different views on that one. There's a few other teams that do have good fixtures as well, because I think we all know that Liverpool have great fixtures in the opening 6. The other teams towards the top of the list, we see Nottingham Forest in second place there with Aston Villa as well. So Forest and Villa,
hold up,
very nice fixtures. No? Fulham and Villa.
Fulham in second place.
Fulham are in second place. Sorry, it's Fulham in second place. Nottingham Forest are actually down in 5th.
Indeed.
So a Fulham opening fixture against Manchester United, which is, again, the toughest fixture in their opening run. But once again, we'd be saying Manchester United are not particularly tough team. I guess that's maybe a controversial thing to say.
With Euro out, I mean, he was meant to be like the brand new star centre-back. Varane's gone. It's going to be Maguire, Martinez. Martinez is wonderful, but is he even going to make the game?
Yeah, because he's not trained at time of recording, so he'll be coming in pretty fresh. But there's a certain amount of Fulham players that I think are definitely interesting. I mean, we've got the likes of Muniz as a 6 million forward. Got, I think, a lot of people looking at Robinson for a 4.5 million defender. I look through these fixtures, and honestly, I think maybe it favours an attacker a little bit more, to be honest.
I mean, shout out to Andreas and Smith Rowe as well. I think they're 2 really exciting picks. Andreas, kind of more, I guess, recognizable as an FPL asset. ESR was really good a few seasons ago.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be brilliant this season. I think he's going to be like one of the most exciting 5.5s that we've got around. But yeah, like Muniz is who is going to be in my team if I get Haaland.
Okay, just to kind of, save some money. Yeah. There is, to be fair, there's some good value in that kind of forward position for forwards around the 5.5 to 6 million. So we are going to talk a little bit about price points a little bit later, but I like the idea of choosing a cheap forward in your lineup there. But outside of Fulham, like we said, there's Aston Villa in 3rd, Ollie Watkins, Bailey. Some people say Konsa. I'm not particularly convinced by Aston Villa defensively, even though I know Konsa is going to be a very popular pick. Particularly in those opening 2 fixtures, West Ham away, Arsenal at home. Can we see a clean sheet there for Aston Villa, really, in the opening 2?
I don't think in the first 2, but then the next 3 are really good.
Yeah, Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich make up game week 3 to 6 for Aston Villa. And that is a really, really nice period for them. Yeah. So fair enough there. A couple other teams probably worth mentioning, Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest, who I mentioned before. Also, really nice fixtures going through the first 6 game weeks. Anyone really worth mentioning?
Baby!
Munoz. Yeah, 5 million defender. Looks good. But
he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He's so in my team, and he's not going anywhere.
5 million for a Crystal Palace defender, though. Does that make you feel a little nervous?
It does not. It, in fact, inspires me. I feel like glory is within reach.
He's definitely one of those guys who can be like, get something crazy. Like his shots per game, his box entries per game are like on another level for a defender.
I feel like Crystal Palace defense is being underrated as well. Like since I think a certain point in last season, they were the 4th best defense in the league.
Yeah, under Glasner, they were top 4 defenses in the league. So
I mean, what the fixtures are:
Brentford, West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester, Manchester United, and then Everton. Chelsea and Man United maybe cause some issues.
In that run, I reckon there's at least 2 clean sheets and 2 attacking returns.
You think so?
That's what I think. 4 returns across 6.
That would be good enough for a 5 million defender, I think. Forest, any big shout outs other than Chris Wood, who everyone speaks about all the time?
When did Chris Wood become brilliant?
I don't know.
I don't know how
he's just a man of the moment.
Chris Wood has been decided to be the pick. Audi isn't dead.
No.
Like he's fit, right?
Well, kind of. I think he came back to training a little bit later.
Yeah,
for some reason.
That Chris Wood pick is not for me. Gibbs White, I think, is interesting, and I think
6.5. Yeah,
Hudson-Odoi is very interesting.
Could be okay.
5.5.
5.5 for Hudson-Odoi, so not too bad there either. But on the other end of the spectrum, we've got teams like Wolves, West Ham, Leicester, right at the bottom with some really horror fixtures. And I think, to be honest, I know some people are kind of toyed with the idea of going for Bowen, saying, oh, he's fixture proof, or Kudus, nice 6.5 million price tag, maybe looking at Jamie Vardy or Leicester or Ait Nouri at Wolves. To be totally honest, I just cannot see myself going for Leicester, West Ham, Wolves players because the fixtures are just they're not it,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. Are you tempted by any of these players?
Not really. I mean, West Ham just signed Fulkrug, which I think is a great signing.
I agree, yeah.
But it's just the fixtures aren't there. The fixtures
I
aren't
think with the Fulkrug signing, it's more of a case of looking at who West Ham are playing and how that's going to impact the oppositions of West Ham rather than looking to pick the West Ham players.
Yet.
Yes, because fixtures do swing. And I think this is a big part of the strategy going into this new season. So obviously, game week 1 to 6, we can see the teams that look good: Liverpool, Fulham, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, maybe a little bit of Arsenal and Newcastle look pretty decent as well. You then switch it to the next run of fixtures and things change just a little bit. So let's have a look here, because you see Liverpool go from having the best fixtures to all of a sudden like some of the worst fixtures, because that is the swing. That is the fixture swing.
Yeah. What's that? Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Arsenal,
Yeah.
Brighton.
Aston Villa and then Southampton, which is not too bad. But it's the Crystal Palace away, Chelsea at home, and Arsenal away, all in a row. Then after that, Brighton and Aston Villa, who aren't terrible teams, really. They're 2 top half teams. So that's going to be a little bit more difficult. And I think this kind of brings into the question is to when you might want to play your wild card. Because in this game week 6 kind of area, fixtures do swing, and teams that had very good fixtures suddenly have bad fixtures. And actually, there's some teams, such as Man City and Arsenal, who kind of do start off the season with some kind of tough fixtures. Actually, it starts to look up a little bit there from game week sort of 6, 7 onwards.
Well, you could frame this in a way of, all right, Man City were what, bottom 4 for the first 6 in terms of fixture difficulty?
Yeah, the fixtures don't look great for Man City, no.
And then they're second after game week 6.
Yes.
So you could say, start with Mo Salah,
Yeah.
game week 6, either wild card or make a couple of transfers if you bank them.
Yep.
Bring in Haaland and make the most of it. But you end up losing Ipswich at home for Haaland.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's a big thing that people are going to be dealing with. But I think something that we definitely are going to have to accept this season is that you can't have them all, and there are going to be players that you wish you could own, but you can't afford them, and they will score points. If you manage to have both Haaland and Salah, well, maybe it's Palmer or Saka or Son who gets the point.
Someone
You
said
can't have them all.
something which really resonated with me last season, and they said, almost every goal scored will hurt your rank.
Yes.
Because you have so few players, and then on top of that, you have defenders. So that most of the time, if a goal is scored, it'll hurt your rank. So
That is probably true, yeah.
it's trying to say, oh, I don't want to miss that one fixture, is probably a little bit too short-sighted, and that's why I'm kind of still not sold on Haaland. Like, obviously, all right, nice, he got a hat-trick against Chelsea. If you watch those goals, but like, I think points chasing is probably damaging, and trying to look at it from like a run here where you can put together, all right, the first 6 are great for Salah, the second 6 are great for Haaland, might be the way to go, and because you can fill out your team with better players.
Yeah, and using a wild card allows you to do that a little bit better. I think I can actually sell the game week 6 wild card a little bit more as well, because around this game week 5, 6, 7 mark, we see more swings for other teams. Newcastle have decent opening fixtures, and then it gets a little bit worse for them after that. So, you know, Newcastle facing the likes of Man City in 6, Everton in 7, Chelsea and Arsenal back-to-back in 9 and 10. Do you really want Newcastle players for that run? No. But going back to the initial run that they have, they play Southampton first game of the season. They play Bournemouth, Tottenham, who, if you're an attacker, you probably quite like to play Tottenham. Wolves there as well. But then it goes very, very sour very quickly. So, again, if you want to load up on Newcastle players, then you might be forced to play a wild card. Other teams that look kind of bad from kind of game week 5, 6, 7 onwards are Fulham. Fulham get a lot worse. So they play Man City in 7. We've got Brighton get a little worse as well. They play Spurs, Newcastle, Wolves, Liverpool, and then Man City all in a row from game week 7.
Arsenal just don't have a good start to the season. It's up to like game week 12.
Yeah.
How many away games is that?
Arsenal's fixtures don't get better till a little bit later. We are gonna get there.
Do me a favor, drop back to 1 to 6.
1 to 6. We've got Arsenal play Wolves at home, then Aston Villa away, then Brighton at home, then Spurs, Man City. Then they play Leicester at home in 6.
So in the first 6, they play Villa, Spurs, and City away.
Yes, all away from home.
And then in the next 6,
it's a little bit better. The thing is, Arsenal play Leicester and then Southampton.
That's the thing.
Back to back in 6 and 7.
But then it's Bournemouth away, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, Chelsea away.
Yeah,
that is.
So they don't have a consistent run of nice fixtures at all. Arsenal, they really don't.
I mean, they will at some point. They've got
for sure.
They've basically got every difficult away game out the.
Don't you worry. When we get to the next group of fixtures, you're going to see things look a little bit better for Arsenal. So it does get better, but certainly there is a lot of reason to maybe not go for an Arsenal player in the early season.
There's a discussion to be had about Arsenal defense here, with so many tricky away games.
Yeah, I personally am not on Arsenal defenders right now.
You have no Arsenal defenders?
I have not, and I say that as an Arsenal fan. There is I like the fixtures from an attacking point of view. So going back to 1 to 6, I think some of these fixtures are really underrated for an attacker. So Aston Villa and Spurs, for example, both away fixtures. They're difficult fixtures if you're a defender, but I would have no problem playing a Saka or a Havertz or an Ødegaard against an Aston Villa or Spurs. I'd actually quite like that. But for defenders, yeah.
Arteta's changed how he plays. Arteta don't do the whole, all right, I'm going to play a difficult team, I'm going to go try to smash them.
No.
He started parking the bus against difficult teams these days, especially away from home.
He does, but then both Aston Villa and Spurs have done some damage to Arsenal in the past. Like, Arsenal will park the bus massively against like a Man City, but I don't think they'll necessarily do that against an Aston Villa or a Spurs. So actually, I think, weirdly, I think the Man City game actually has a higher probability of a clean sheet than a Aston Villa or a Spurs, where Arsenal will be more likely to go out and play. But that's just kind of the way Arsenal are a little bit. But, I mean, on balance, are we really fancying an Arsenal defender there?
No Arsenal defender, they're going to take away your season ticket, bro.
I don't have one, so I think
banned from the ground.
But I like them for attack. Anyway, back to the kind of the first swing. So the post game week 5, 6, 7 swing. We see Chelsea and Crystal Palace also have some pretty poor fixtures there as well. Crystal Palace play Liverpool in 7, Spurs in 9. They play Aston Villa in 12. So again, not a great run of fixtures. You may get away with one player, but you're not going to want to have multiple Crystal Palace players during that time. Yeah. So again, if you start off the season with Munoz as a Anderson or a Henderson, maybe even have 3 of those players, you're probably going to want to move away from them at around this point.
Very quickly.
I think the big argument here really is, can we sit down now at the start of the season, look at the whole picture and say, all right, I actually would quite like to start the season with Liverpool players and Crystal Palace players and Newcastle players. Therefore, shall I work on the basis that I will wildcard in around game week 6 so I can have all of the great returns from the great players with great fixtures in that early period from those teams and then be able to pivot away from that nice and early? Can we take advantage of what we know?
I love a good early wildcard.
Yeah.
I love an early wildcard. You know, I talked about it last time we were on here. I love going a bit more differential early games. And this gives you an opportunity to really like chase after those first 6 fixtures.
Yeah.
And then if it goes wrong, wildcard out of it. If it doesn't go wrong, you might want to keep it.
Yeah.
But no, I really like that. I really like the wildcard in Game Week 6.
Yeah, it looks good.
7, technically.
Yeah, well, 6, 7. It depends who you're loading up on in particular. But going all in on a Liverpool and Crystal Palace, and maybe ignoring Arsenal and Man City to a certain degree, I think there's something to be said about that. But the only way to do this is you go into the season with it in mind that I might wildcard around Game Week 6, and I'm okay with that. There's a lot of snobbery that I've seen in the FPL world. You must save your wildcard. If you wildcard early, you are a failure. I don't agree. I don't agree.
People are snobbery about anything, man.
Yeah, that's true. Particularly FPL. There's a
Particularly,
lot of
why are you
FPL
being a snob about FPL, bro? Get yourself a whole life.
For sure. But yeah, no, I think you're using the wildcard to your advantage. You're pre-planning. And I think that's better than what a lot of people will be doing, where they will just be using their wild card on a whim, randomly when they feel like it, which it can work as well, don't get me wrong. But I like to have more control, take the ball by its horns, and ride that rodeo of Liverpool great fixtures.
But don't you think if you're very static about your approach to the wild card, you could end up like forcing your hand when you don't want to?
Maybe, but I think it's also a good amount of time. I think around 5 game weeks is a good amount of time to gather some information about how the rest of this, well, at least the next period of games is likely to go as well. You get to understand form, you get to understand what's working, what isn't working, the new teams getting promoted. So you get a lot of information as well. So it's not just about the fixture swings, it's also about trying to scouting, doing your scouting for the first weeks, and be able to adjust quickly to the new information of the new season.
Are we allowed to say that word on the pod?
Scouting.
Yeah.
Hubbing. Hubbing. I mean, hubbing.
We'll be hubbing for good teams.
We'll be hubbing for the best players. Anyway, right. There's more fixture swings. There's another one, and that comes in around game week 12, 13, and from this point onwards, I'd say there's some minor fixture swings. From this point, it looks a lot better for Arsenal, finally. So Arsenal get a good run of fixtures here, which is nice. So Arsenal play West Ham, Man United at home, Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace, and Ipswich between 13 and 18, which is a nice little run for them. A little bit better than we've seen previously.
First time Chelsea coming into the fixture mix as well.
Yes, Chelsea looking good there as well. They play Villa, Southampton, Spurs, Brentford, Everton, and then Fulham. No super tough fixtures in there, really. And we finally see the likes of Wolves with some good fixtures as well after their horror start. And interestingly, this is also the point in the season where Everton drop off, because Everton have some beautiful fixtures between 1 and 12. And from sort of game week 13-ish, they really do tail off there as well. So I think there's another potential wildcard opportunity here, if it means switching to a lot of Arsenal and Chelsea players, I guess.
This is a trickier spot. I think you're already going to have a bunch of Arsenal in your team by now. The Chelsea players, are you really going to load up?
Outside of Palmer and Nkunku,
I mean,
maybe a defender.
Is a bit of a, I don't want to talk about Nkunku, it's a bit of a trap right there.
Fair enough.
But you're going to get bare Brighton and Wolves players. You're going to load up a Bournemouth without Solanke.
Yeah, West Ham. Maybe.
You heard it here first.
Leicester and Southampton are up there as well for the game week 13 swing.
Yeah, I mean, even the teams with bad fixtures, you're unlikely to have many of their players. Like, you probably already sold your Crystal Palace players.
Yeah.
United, possibly, but will you have had 2 or 3 United players for you to actually want a wildcard out by this point? I think this is an awkward time to wildcard just because you're unlikely to want to get rid of the players that you have or buy the players that you don't have, if that makes sense.
I definitely see what you mean. And I think that's why I think so many people are advocating for a wild card around game week 6, is because the swings later, whilst they do exist, they're sort of for teams that are, I don't know, less appealing, let's say. You're not going to triple up on Wolves, are you?
You never know, man. You never know.
I guess you never know.
Wolves are top of the Premier League, game week 12. You're not going to be tripled up. I think we will be.
That's very, very true.
Never rule it out.
But there we go. Those are kind of your fixtures for that first period. Let's just go back to the 1 to 6 fixtures, because there are some other reasons to wildcard. We mentioned fixture swings. We mentioned scouting.
Whoa.
Is there any other... Sorry, hubbing for fixtures for players. Is there any other reasons you might wildcard aside from my team looks terrible and I would like to change it all? Like, when do you usually wildcard?
I've got 2 points when I wildcard.
Yep.
Both times I want to be almost certain that my team is going to score more points when I do it. But I either wildcard for a planned fixture swing. But I'm not I tend to not be very rigid about my plans. I will happily change it. Or I will wildcard if my team just sucks.
Yeah. So a few injuries come out of nowhere.
A few injuries come out of nowhere. Unhappy with a couple of my picks.
Yeah.
Like if there's 8 players I want to change, I'll do it.
Yeah, this is probably a route right for me as well.
Yeah.
So, but do you typically pre-plan a wild card, or are you more of a laid back guy and see what happens, watch how it all unfolds?
Let me have my water.
Okay.
I need to think about this question.
Think about this very, very deeply because this is a very important question. What kind of a wild carder are you?
Get yourself a can of Cano. Cano.
A cano? It's can of water.
Oh, Cano
like a
water.
pun, yeah.
Get you a can of water. Whoever came up with that name, you're clever.
They certainly are.
I'll be paid for that.
Producer is very, very happy with that shout out. So yeah,
no, I mean, I tend to be. It's a bit of a balance, right? If there's for my second wildcard, I'm a lot more structured because there's a lot more planning required for the second wildcard.
Absolutely.
They used to be anyway. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But for the first wildcard, I'm a lot more. I'm going to use it when it's needed. So I'm not going to say, okay, game week 6 is a nice fixture swing. I'm going to plan my transfers up to then because of that, unless there's like serious FPL planning considerations because of doubles or a big important fixture swing. For me, game week 6 will be one I'll keep in mind, but I'm not going to specifically make my transfers based on it.
Okay.
If I need to use it, I'll use it. If I don't, I won't.
Fair enough. I think that actually brings me into another point, which is booking in transfers. Or that's kind of the phrase we use in the FPL world, because you see this a lot of the time. People kind of are maybe over planning a little bit, where they kind of say, okay, this is great. I see you have good fixtures here. You have good fixtures here. Oh, I'm going to move from Saka to Palmer in game week 3. And then I'm going to move from Haaland to Salah and also bring in Watkins. And they make all of these intricate plans and it never works.
Yeah.
Because certainly at the beginning of the season, things change. You don't know what to expect. We'll have another Cole Palmer who will emerge out of nowhere and you'll suddenly be desperate to get that player in your team. You're going to have an injury you weren't expecting. One team you think is going to do really well this season, and they're going to look awful. Kind of like Manchester United and Chelsea, beginning of last season. We all loaded up on those players.
Rashford and Bruno was in teams for so long.
Exactly. And suddenly we realized, oh man, I need to fix that. So the plan that you might have originally had goes out the window immediately. And we see this happen every year for so many different reasons. Injuries, form, unexpected red cards or unexpected underrated picks that come out of nowhere and do really, really well. It all changes so fast. And for that reason, I'm very anti booking in transfers at the beginning of the season.
I am completely with you for like the whole season. Like, I think booking in transfers, I rarely say the word mistake in FPL.
Okay.
I think booking in transfers is a mistake. Saying game week 2, I'm going to sell this player. Game week 3, I hate it.
It doesn't work.
I hate it.
And I think it's one of those kind of Dunning-Kruger effects of FPL, where it's people who you kind of are overthinking it. You're trying to be too smart, and you're going so far and trying to be too smart, they end up being pretty dumb. You've gone off the other end of the Dunning-Kruger hump, I guess.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but.
Dunning-Kruger, that's a good reference.
Yeah,
well done.
No, thank you.
Did you write that down?
No, I didn't. No,
Did you just come up with it right now?
That came up in my head. Yeah.
Wow.
The other thing that just on transfers is the kind of idea of saving transfers and the 5 free transfers that you can have a maximum of 5 free transfers this season. Of course, if you continue to not spend your transfers for whatever reason, people have been kind of asking: is that actually viable? Do you think we'll ever be in a situation? And unless you go in a coma for 5 game weeks, is there any actual reasons why you would ever have 5 free transfers realistically?
So I was thinking about this, right?
Yeah.
And if you make one transfer every 2 game weeks, you'll have what 4 transfers by game week 8.
Okay, yeah, okay, so kind of a longer term,
Yeah,
saving the odd one here and there.
and let's say, for example, game week 1 you roll your transfer. You probably should roll your transfer in
Game week 1 you should hopefully, because you can't gain enough information from one game week to justify making any sudden change in your
unless
team,
you
really.
unless you've seen something that you're just like, no, I have to have that, which a lot of people do.
I think a red card or an injury is the only real reason to make a transfer.
Whoa,
in game week 1.
that's deep. Red card. What if a player scores a hat trick?
If a player scores a hat trick and you didn't identify that they were capable of scoring hat tricks before game week 1, then is that one game week's worth of information really worthwhile? Look, okay, Chris Wood scores a hat trick in game week 1.
I'm not doing it.
Are you suddenly saying Chris Wood is a must-buy player based on one game week's worth of information?
It depends how he played. If it was like this was the Chris Wood game and he was just like he was smashing it, like Forest are playing very differently and like they're really playing to his strengths, like lots of crosses coming in, then like you kind of have to.
I mean, I think maybe Chris Wood was a bad example. A better example, and we see this every season, a random defender will score in game week 1. It happens every year.
Okay,
We'll see Ben Mee score a goal in game week 1.
It's always Ben Mee though.
Yeah, it's always
Ben Mee has a goal at him in the first 4 game weeks.
That is true.
Every season.
That is so true. And everyone will rush to buy Ben Mee.
Yeah.
His price goes up. Everyone's raving about him. He's like 50% owned in FPL, and then he won't score another goal for 25 game weeks. And everyone's like, what? But he scored 1 in 1. I can't believe he didn't continue the trend of 1 goal per game for the rest of the season. I thought he was on for a 38-goal season.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that, right?
Okay, so let's say you don't make a transfer game week 1. So then game week 2 you got 1 free transfer, and you have 2 free transfers in game week 2. Can't count apparently.
And previously you would have to have used them.
One or both of them.
Yeah.
So now you just use one, and then the next game week you got another 2 free transfers. So then what if you roll one again, use one, roll one? It's difficult because you're obviously going to want to move quicker than that early season. But I think you can get up to 3, maybe even 4.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The one concern I have is that if people change their mentality towards transfers too much, they end up playing a little bit too passively and, maybe miss some opportunities. I think some people, are definitely going to fall into that trap. Obviously, we have the option.
How many times have you said, if I hadn't done anything the last 4 game weeks, I would have had another 50 points?
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely said that a few times.
Who's not said that?
Yeah.
Because we all trigger happy.
Yeah.
Like, confirm that greed is that greed is like a dopamine color, man. you want to hit it.
So again, it goes back to the trying to be too smart by trying to make too many transfers.
Yeah. But you're right. It's the other side of it as well, right? What if you're just too slow?
Yeah.
Moving on stuff because you want to get to 5 free transfers.
Yes.
So,
but I think by game week 4, we should have enough information whereby we can start being a little bit more proactive with our transfers. Certainly, it's going to be. I can definitely see myself going to 3 free transfers in the first 3 game weeks, barring any injuries or suspensions.
I think there's no chance of you doing that.
Really?
0%.
What information can you gain from first 2 game weeks that are going to revolutionize and completely change your opinions from game week 1?
FOMO.
Yes, that is true. But that's something you want to try and avoid, right?
You do, but like, I remember in Burma last season, right?
Yeah.
Took me ages. It took me
It took me way too long to jump on him.
And I should have just done it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, there's 2 sides. Sometimes you're like, I hate this player. I'm not going to get him.
Yeah.
No matter how many points he scores because everyone likes him. And the other side of it is, oh my God, everyone's got this player. I kind of need him. So I don't think there's any chance of you not making a transfer in the first 3 games. There's going to be players which emerge. There's going to be teams which emerge. The season isn't going to start the same way the last season ended. You're not going to have the same teams that are good be good and the same teams that are bad be bad.
Okay, yeah, right. If something drastically changes, I don't know. I feel like as long as you've got a fairly balanced team, you're not going to need to make too many changes in the first 2 game weeks. 2 game weeks is not. It's an inadequate amount of time.
Who's the most exciting pick in your team?
Probably right this moment is probably Jota.
All right.
And
so Jota gets benched both first game weeks.
Yeah, then okay.
You make him transfer.
Yeah, all right. I'll reframe. If I have no injury suspensions or sudden changes of game time prospects.
Okay.
But the only reason Jota would be benched for the first 2 game weeks, presumably, would be because he's got some kind of injury issue. So I think I'm covered by my injury stipulation.
Okay. Who's your next most interesting pick? That's I'm guaranteed to start.
Right now, who's guaranteed to start? Probably Nkunku.
There
maybe?
we go. Nkunku, perfect player.
Right.
Nkunku starts the season. He comes off about 70 minutes first game.
Yep.
He comes off 55 minutes second game. Stinker after stinker. His minutes are like he's still starting. He just got hooked a little bit earlier than usual for the second game because I don't know, maybe they're 2-0 behind it or something. And then what? You're gonna keep Nkunku?
Okay. You actually bring up some really valid points. I think that would count as something that is a drastic change in information.
What, a player you picked isn't good?
Yeah, but not even. No, it's not. It's not a case of the player you've picked isn't good. It's that the player has changed. If you pick Nkunku in game week 1 thinking, oh, this is going to be like a 70, 80-minute man playing in regularly in advanced positions, and it turns out that he's not that guy, then the player you've picked is not the same player that you've got. And I think that's a good reason to make a transfer.
Let me remind you of some narratives from last season, right?
Go on.
So game week 2, Phil Foden plays Newcastle. And he plays centrally and he absolutely dominates. Like, he had a brilliant game against Newcastle. First time we saw him centrally in a proper serious game because De Bruyne got injured game week 1. And like, you know when he's turning all game, when he's doing that thing where every second he's turning, he's doing that all game. Brilliant. Fixture run looks beautiful. Everyone's like, I need that in my team.
Yeah.
Because the scene changed. De Bruyne is out. Foden's in the center.
Yeah.
We're going to buy him. And then Sterling bags a, 19-pointer against Luton.
Yes, that's right.
And then the fixture run, this was game week 3. The fixture run after that was sensational. And like, there's no one in your team which you are super inclined to sell. But Sterling drops a 19-pointer and he's got great fixtures coming up. You're going to want to buy him. And that's the problem of early season, right? It's the stories that gather so much steam so quickly. Just you get lost, man.
But I don't think I want to react to like a Sterling scoring a 19-pointer against Luton. I don't want to react to something like that. You know, if I'm trying to think of a player that I don't have in my team, like Son plays Leicester in game week 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, away from home. If he scores 2 goals in that game, really, really nice return, I'm not going to suddenly pick him in my team. I'm not going to be swayed by that because I already know that Son has the ability to do that in game week 1, and I'm not picking him despite that information. I already know. So nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. If something has changed, where Son is playing as a central striker, Spurs, all of the other players are just, playing super deep and just throwing it to Son non-stop, then the Son that I expected is not the Son that is in reality. And that does justify a change. So I think there has to be a change in circumstances to justify it. We already have the information that, this, that, or the other player can do really well in individual fixtures. Unless something changes. Chris Wood is a great pick until, if something changes. He's suddenly on the bench.
I will remind you of this conversation in game week 2.
Fine, good. Well, we're here every Tuesday, so I mean, you'll have that opportunity.
Excellent.
So yeah, there we go. I think you've raised a really good point about the fact that if you just save the odd transfer here and there, it will quickly build up. You can almost create like an extra mini wild card for you.
That's the thing.
In a way.
Imagine having 5 transfers come. I mean,
maybe it might take you 15 game weeks to get there. Potentially.
But then you can't wild... Oh, no, you can wildcard. Oh, my God.
You can wildcard, and you will still have all of your transfers that you saved up.
Oh, my God, this is brilliant.
And free hit as well.
You can wildcard game week 6.
Yep.
And then mini wildcard game week... What was it that you...
12.
Game week 12.
To get some more Arsenal players in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. It works.
No, that's really game changing.
And I think it's definitely possible to save 3 or 4 free transfers by game week 12.
It is. Because before, when you had 2 free transfers, you're basically inclined to use both of them.
Yeah.
Now you can just roll it.
Yep, and there'll definitely be situations like that. I think last season, like game week 3, I didn't really need to make a transfer, but just did one anyway because I didn't want to waste it. And I think that's why I like the new 5 free transfer rule, because it just gives you that extra option. But it is gonna, if you start the season well, and then you can start saving free transfers because all of your initial picks are doing really well, you are gonna find yourself in such an advantage. I think there's never been a season where it's more important to start well, because your potential of saving these free transfers and having more advantages later on in the season, you're growing and growing and growing.
Yeah,
it's going to be awesome. Only if you have a good start, though. If you have a bad start, you are cooked. You are absolutely cooked.
Chasing points at Gameweek 3
I know.
is brutal, man.
I know. Let's talk about some chips.
Way.
Let's talk about some chips. And we were messaging a little bit earlier on WhatsApp. Maybe the value of the chips has changed a little bit this year. Like, what are your initial thoughts?
So, FA Cup replays are gone.
Yeah, they've got no more FA Cup replays this season.
So, the Game Week 29 blank, the Game Week 34 double.
Yeah, so before we would have had like 3 or 4 double game weeks, 2 or 3 blank game weeks.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be like 1 double game week, 1 blank game week.
Well, it's just going to be the League Cup and then the semi-final?
Yeah, there's going to be fewer and they're going to be smaller.
Yeah.
Both blanks and doubles.
So, last game week was the first game week that I started thinking like this about bench boost anyway, where I was like, at any point in the season, if my bench looks like it can score 20, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And that was my thinking
regardless of double game week, single game week.
That's what I told myself last season. I still used it in a double, mind you. But but I didn't have the opportunity to. There was no point. But I think that idea can be extended across all chips for this season for the first time, where it's a case of, except for the free hit probably. I think that's a powerful chip. But bench boost and triple captain are notoriously underperforming chips.
Yeah.
And I think at any point, if you think Ipswich game week 1 or Ipswich game week 2 for Salah and Haaland, I think it's brilliant triple captain slots.
Yeah.
If I have Salah or Haaland for one of those 2 game weeks, there's about a 50% chance I'd do it.
Wow.
I really think so. Because you're going to have 1 double game week. You don't know how good it's going to be.
Yeah.
You don't know how UCL
It might be more than 1, but they, we're going to have, they're like going to be minor. They're going to be small.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one to think about. And the bench boost is such a bad chip because it makes you plan around it, and I hate planning around chips because you always miss good points. I
definitely agree with that. I feel like I definitely suffered with that a little bit last year as well. You try and be too smart with things, you over-plan, and you actually lock yourself out of other options. I did the same thing with free hit, ignoring Richarlison because, I was going to free hit in game week 29 or whatever it was. So I was like, I don't need
free
a
hit that was.
Yeah, I know. I don't need Spurs players because I'm going to free hit that week anyway. And then,
Richarlison done so many of us though, man.
And Son as well. Same period. So I didn't have Richarlison or Son during there because I was so hyper-focused on that. So there's maybe some learnings there. But I think, yeah, definitely if the value of the chips is down and you can play them in, a little bit more, well, wherever, rather than during a specific period, then, yeah, it's going to help that. Like, I definitely agree with you. You have like certain weeks where you look at your team, you look at your bench, and you think, I don't really know who I should be starting here. Should I play this player? Should I bench this player? If you've got a couple of those decisions, you're maybe post wildcard where you've got some decent cheapies on your bench.
You got 3 transfers burning a hole in your pocket.
What? Why not go for a bench boost?
I could just change my keeper here and bench boost.
Yeah. You could just switch to another 4.5 keeper, upgrade your 4 million goalkeeper if that's what you have. Just go for it. Just out of nowhere, out of pocket.
Out of pocket.
A little bit out of pocket.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for it. I think the bench boost and triple captain are just so overrated. And they almost never. When has a triple captain landed in the last 5 years? I think it was just Salah.
Yeah, but okay, this is the thing though. You're playing the odds. at the end of the day. Yeah, everyone could say, oh, I played a triple captain on a single game week and actually outscored the double game week.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about all of the people who played the triple captain on another single game week who got 2 pointers? And they won't say anything. They're the quiet ones.
We don't talk about them. We don't talk about them. No, but obviously, it's if you're an odds man, you're an odds man. But the odds are going to be less and less in your favor this season, is what we're saying. Because there's going to be less double game weeks and less tasty double game weeks.
Yeah, and say we only have one big double game week this season, and even that might not be super big. Then we've got bench boost, free hit, triple captain. You can't play all of them in that week, right? So, you're going to have to use some of them in some.
Plus, you got up to 5 free transfers. You can prepare for the blanks a little bit better.
You can.
You don't have to use the free hit or the wild card to get yourself out of it. Game week 1, game week 2, man. Talk to me about that triple captain.
I don't know. What about, I've seen a few people mention kind of bench boost in game week 1.
I don't like that.
I hate it.
Yeah.
With a burning passion.
Yeah.
And do you know why? Because you've got no information going into game week 1. You do not have a clue who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. Imagine if we did that last season with all of our Man United and Chelsea players. You'd be looking at your team thinking, oh, I've got all of these great Man United and Chelsea players. They're going to absolutely cook in game week 1. You bench boost them and you get like 1 pointers from your Rashfords and your Brunos and your Chilwells.
And you got no money as well.
Yeah.
You got the least amount of money for the season in game week 1.
Your team is locked into this weird structure with all of this money on your bench. It is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
No way. No way.
Not for me,
Not
baby.
for me either. But triple captain, you're fine with, though.
Triple captain, all over it.
Yeah. Because I guess the triple captain doesn't really affect your squad structure. No. So you can be...
It's just one extra set of captaincy points.
Yeah. It's hardly anything.
It's one extra player for one game.
It's the weakest chip in the game, for sure. What's weaker as a chip than the triple captain chip? Okay, let's your average captain score.
Okay, yeah, no,
is what?
If
you get 10 points,
I didn't
you're
know
happy.
you were such a data man.
Yeah.
When you're going based on averages and memes and statistics and algorithms, of course, yeah, the triple captain is the least likely to bag you points.
Yeah,
but the bench boost can be so. I think the bench boost can cost you like in other ways as well.
No, that's definitely true. That's definitely okay. So you're saying that the power of the bench boost, the power of the triple captain, is its ability to not impact you in other ways.
The bench boost is like the resurrection stone. Like the longer you hold on to it, the darker you're like.
Okay. Yeah. And the triple captain.
The triple captain is just it doesn't work with the Harry Potter references.
No.
The triple captain is like the polyjuice potion. It's just a one shot. Like go do what you gotta do that day, and that's it. You enjoy your life.
Wow.
Don't ask me what free hit is. Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. I think let's just move on to just general strategy stuff, because there's some other, I think, kind of loose topics to talk about that don't really fit in anywhere. First of all, safe or risky to start the season? Like your game week 1 team, are you safe or risky? I think you're risky, aren't you?
Risque with a QUE.
Right.
Risque.
Because you kind of mentioned last episode that you want to try and kind of beat the template. But I don't understand how you can... I definitely understand the benefits of doing that, but it relies on you being successful in doing it. I think it's so hard to kind of actually find those players before the season even starts and already know. And we've got a lot of players who are just reliable. Like, that Saka and Haaland and Isak and Eze, Guardiola, Alexander-Arnold, like, they're just going to get yourself some bog standard points. There's very little chance of these flopping.
I'd beg to differ.
Really?
I'd beg to differ. I think there's a lot.
Compared to name like a few rogue picks in your team right now.
Jota, Munoz, is Gordon rogue? I don't know.
Nah, Gordon's pretty safe. Unreliable, I would say.
Havertz.
Yeah, maybe not as reliable.
Yeah. Palmer, but that's a minutes problem, not a reliability.
I think Palmer has a minutes problem.
Well, anyone who came in late from the Euros has a question of whether they're going to start the first game.
True. We're going to talk about that in a bit, by the way.
I don't have too many. The thing is, my draft's not ready. I can't take my draft seriously at this point.
Fair enough.
Like my draft is basically almost the same as how I left it last season, except for last time we spoke. So except for I sold Foden and brought Saka.
Yeah.
And I sold Raya and bought Pickford. I think my draft is basically the same other than that.
Okay.
So like my draft is gonna get finalized post Community Shield.
Right, that makes sense.
And I'll find stuff, but there's no way I'm gonna start the season with a template team and be happy in my soul.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the next episode will be like post Community Shield. It'll be on the Tuesday after the Community Shield. So could we have a look at it then? I'll bring mine in as well. We'll do a little.
It won't be crazy. I'll probably have like 2 rogue picks in there.
Yeah.
And Jota is going to be most likely one of them. I'm not going to like try to rewrite the script.
But there you go. So even playing risky is only 1 or 2 risks.
But that's throughout the season.
Yeah, that's
At what
true.
point are you going to have 5 minutes risks? And
There will be a lot of people listening to this right now who will have like a bunch of crazy players in their team that are not reliable in the same way as like an Arsenal defender or a Man City attacker or whatever, who you just know are just going to get points, whatever.
Yeah, I think you got to find yourself a balance. I do think you should not be afraid to go against the grain earlier on. And when I say against the grain, I don't mean like 5-6 players who are like 0.5%. What I do mean is like, okay, you think Haaland isn't going to do well early season, like trust that instinct. Go for something different. If you think someone like Saka or Arsenal defense isn't going to perform this season, go against it. Like that's going against the grain in a way that isn't going to absolutely obliterate you. Most likely, it could do, but most likely it won't. And like hedge your bets with something different.
Yeah.
Like okay, I don't think that Arsenal are going to keep a clean sheet. I think Everton are. I'm going to save myself some money, double up on Everton defense, see what I can find somewhere else.
See, I actually like that. I think a lot of people think to be different, it's just, or try and, go against the grain a little bit. It's just about picking players that no one else is playing against. But I kind of like, making those little individual bets. I don't think Arsenal will keep a clean sheet, so I won't pick an Arsenal defender. I think, Salah, or I think Jota is going to get plenty of minutes at the start of the season. So let's, make that little bet.
You've warmed up to Jota?
I actually have, to be fair.
Tell me, what's happened? What's changed?
I've been watching Liverpool pre-season and I like the way they're kind of set up for the striker a little bit. And I love Jota as a pick. Like, I think everyone loves Jota as an FPL pick. Like, but it's just a case of owning him at the right time. The right time is when he's fit and available. And he is fit and available.
Nunez has just returned to the squad.
Yeah, only just today. Yeah. And I think the other thing is that I've changed my mind on strategy a little bit. So I'm going to be looking to wildcard fairly early this season. Okay. And I'm going to kind of lock that in as well. Ooh. Unless things go extremely well, I will wildcard probably in game week 6.
Okay, that's interesting.
So, and therefore, I'm more comfortable with going for a few Liverpool players, taking a few mini risks. Nothing, too crazy. I still want the bulk of my team to be reliable guys, but I'm happy to go for Jota. I'm happy to, go for Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't massively rate him as a pick long term. If it's just a very short term pick. You know,
I don't rate Trent, man.
Neither did I last podcast, but now I've kind of changed my mind on how I'm going to play this season. I'm more willing to go for him in the short term. There's no way he's a season pick for me.
If you've locked in a game week 6-7 wildcard, then fair enough.
Yeah. And certain other players, like I'm happy to go for like a few Crystal Palace players because I know they're going to be gone in a couple of weeks. I'm happy to go with no Arsenal defenders because, when that game week 6 comes around, I don't have to wait too long to start reinvested in Arsenal defenders if they do keep clean sheets every week and look brilliant defensively. And I think, locking in an early wild card allows you to make a few fairly aggressive bets on what's going to happen here and there. So I think that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
And I'm excited by that.
Okay. Okay.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about is price points. So you're well aware of price points and how they work, right?
You asked me if I'm aware of prices.
Price points. Like the price point strategy.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain it to the people? Because I think a lot of people are maybe not super familiar with how a price point strategy works, I guess.
So essentially, you're not picking a team based on players. You're picking a team based on how you split in your budget.
Yeah.
So you're saying, all right, I'm gonna have one premium, so there's gonna be a 12.5 or a 15 million slot on my team, and then I'm gonna have 3 7.5 million midfielders, and then I'll have 2 4.5s, 2 4.0s, and then an 8 million to 7 to 9 million striker, and so on and forth.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
To try and like kind of make your team flexible. So, for example, we mentioned earlier going for like a Chris Wood or a Muniz. If you have a player around that price, if Wood doesn't work out, you can move to Muniz. If Muniz doesn't work out, you go for João Pedro. If João Pedro doesn't work out, you go for Armstrong. You've got all of these options in that same position. If you have 2 players at that price point, so maybe you have a Wood, a Muniz, and a Haaland in your draft. Well, what happens if you want both Isak and Watkins all of a sudden? It becomes a lot harder to get certain players without making multiple transfers. But if you have, Haaland, Isak, Wood, for example, which I think a lot of people have, myself included. If you want Watkins, well, you can swap a Haaland or an Isak for them. If you want a Armstrong, you swap your Wood for them. And you always have access to a guy at a similar price without having to make multiple transfers. You just do it in one.
Yeah.
Easy switch.
Yeah.
Love it.
My only ever issues with that is you will not sell Haaland or Salah outside of a wild card.
Do you not think?
No, you're just not going to do it.
What about in game week, 5, where Haaland plays against Arsenal?
You will scare yourself with the narrative. Like, either Haaland will have smashed it in the first 4 game weeks and you won't want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Or he'll have smashed it in at least one of those game weeks, which is virtually certain that he'll smash it in one of those game weeks. And you'll see Arsenal and then Newcastle coming up, and you'll think, Arsenal at home, Man City might have struggled against the earlier fixtures because teams were playing a little bit deeper against them. You'll sell yourself a story. It's too difficult to sell a player like Haaland.
That is a fair point. It is hard to sell him. But, okay, maybe Haaland's a bad example.
I'm only talking about Haaland and Salah in terms of like players that you should not account for as part of like
you
should never say I can sell
rotation.
Haaland to Watkins. You should never say that because you're not going to do that. Plus, you're very unlikely. No, you never say never, right? Where's Villa?
Villa play in 5 Wolves, followed by Ipswich. So actually, like the Haaland would play Arsenal and Newcastle, and Watkins would play.
That's not a bad shot.
Remember, don't book in a transfer. So we can speak about
definitely
theoretically.
booked in that transfer, haven't you?
No.
And then you're gonna wild card Haaland back in.
Yeah, probably.
There you go. You booked in your transfer. Wow.
No, but I think it's good to be aware of these potential things that could happen that you could do without booking it in necessarily. But like, there's another really nice price point is the 6.5 million midfielders. There's so many nice players around that price. So I think it's a good idea to have an Eze or an Nkunku or maybe even a Gordon. Have 1 or 2 players around that price. Then if one of Eze and Nkunku doesn't work out, but Bailey looks really good, you've already got players ready to switch to a Bailey. Having at least one kind of 10 million-ish midfielder. You start off with Saka, so you've got an easy route to Foden. After that, have one premium defender. So if you want to move a Gvardiol to a Saliba or a Robertson or something like that, you can do it in one. If you have 3 4.5 million defenders in your team, or 1 5 million defender, maybe, how are you going to get an Arsenal defender in one transfer? Impossible. Impossible. Although saying that, we're going to have loads of transfers apparently, so maybe none of that will matter this season.
On my drive here, I was thinking, why are we all so pressed to have £6 million centre backs?
Well, who is the 6 million centre back?
Saliba and Gabriel.
Yeah, I'm not that bothered about them.
Like, Gabriel's nailed in my team at the moment. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, bro, this is 6 million centre back.
Yeah, it's a lot of Wonga.
What, for his attacking threat? Guy gets 2 goals a season. All right, he's good at headers.
2 is a bit harsh. He's like a 4 goal a season man.
So what? He'll score 1 every 10 game weeks.
Yeah, about 9.5.
Why don't you buy them? No, but I feel like we're getting bumped a little bit,
Yeah.
and I don't think Ray is the best goalkeeper.
Well, yeah, no, because Raya's ceiling is 6 points. He's never going to score you more than 6 points.
Yeah. So
Whereas a Pickford, I like a Pickford.
is he in draft?
He's not in my draft, but he's like I've got 4.5 million keeper at the moment, but I have 0.5 in the bank. So I'm kind of like debating whether I end up just upgrading to Pickford because I do like him.
I've got Pickford.
And he's so reliable.
He's reliable.
There's no way Pickford flop.
Listen,
It's what everyone said last season. At the start of the season,
we know for a fact Sean Dyche and I'm none of that total football lark, none of that nonsense. Stick 4 men, 5 men, 8 men behind the ball.
All right, okay. We've done loads of stuff. There's a few more topics I want to cover, so let's do them. And this one is analytics versus eye test, the grass versus spreadsheet, the great debate. What side are you on?
What side are you on?
I mean, I think I'm moving. I think I've always been analytics, to be honest.
Clearly analytics. I didn't realize how analytics you were.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I can't believe I'm having a podcast with the analytics head. No, listen, data is data, but you can't beat what your eye can see. You can't. And the data can be misleading, as can your eye, but you have to augment what you're seeing with the data. You can't just be like, all right, this is what the data says, so this is how I'm going to make my decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you, and we've all had these discussions, so I know exactly what you're gonna say. But like, that's just my take on it. I don't think you can play. I don't think it's fun to play FPL like that.
Oh, come on, it's so fun. Have you never had the great feeling of opening up Fantasy Football Hub on their OptiStats tool and having a look at all of the XG numbers over the past 5 game weeks and thinking, oh, you're going under the radar. I don't think anyone's noticed you, cheeky little man with a 0.6 XG per 90.
Yeah.
Did that not tickle you?
Listen, I don't know how 0.6 per 90 didn't get picked up, because that's brilliant. Brilliant data.
Yeah, true.
But like, I hear it. Like, you can find nuggets in data because you're not gonna watch all the fixtures, right? And I just can't. I'm incapable of making my decisions be decided more so by statistics than they are by what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, there's so much information that isn't picked up by data.
Definitely, such as like offside goals. You know,
Offside goals,
player positioning.
Like a great run that could have ended in a
I
pass.
100% agree with you.
There's a lot of it.
So there has to be a balance somewhere. I think the one thing that analytics versus eye test managers can all agree on is that you shouldn't pick players based on how many points they scored last week. I think people like who watch a lot of football and use eye test, you know, they're not just looking at who scores the most FPL points.
No.
I think actual points scored is one of the worst ways to judge a pick, which is super controversial because that's just how most people play FPL. Who scored the most points over the past 5 weeks? Often that does align with the data and with what you're seeing on pitch. But also there's a lot of freak stuff that, you know, we spoke about Ben Mee. If he scores a goal in game week 1, everyone's going to pick him because he scored the most points. But like from a data point of view, from an eye test point of view, he might have scored that nice corner header.
Defo just deflected off his head.
Yeah.
He got a 15-pointer.
Yeah. You know, like if a player's like scores a hat-trick, but all 3 goals kind of just bounced off the back of their head whilst they were looking at a pigeon fly across the pitch.
Erling Haaland against Chelsea in pre-season. That's what happened.
Well, he was looking at a pigeon.
He was looking at a pigeon, the ball bounced off his foot and it went in. No. The Chelsea player passed it to his foot and then it went in.
That is typically how goals work, in fairness, Sim.
That is how goals work. But look, I've got 2 problems with analytics here.
Yeah.
First of all, you're all prudes and you think you're better than everyone.
Yes.
Number 2, like, you take the data too far.
Like too far.
You take it too far. If it was just on like XG and stuff like that, all right, fair enough. But you got XG, delta, and variance, gamma, and like you got Greek mythology coming into your stats. What is going on? Like, there's no need for any of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some people do take it too far.
It's just too much.
But I think it's a nice little a compliment to your game.
The maximum number of letters I will allow into my data set is non-penalty XG.
NPXG.
That's the most amount I will take.
It's quite a lot, in fairness.
I feel like there's someone sat
What about NP?
That guy's analytics.
NPXGI? Non-penalty goal involvements?
No,
too many?
Too far.
All right.
Too far.
Fair enough. What about post shots, goals allowed? Expected goals allowed?
Post shots, expected goals.
Yeah, I mean, you don't just look at like the expected goals allowed. It has to be post shots. That'd be stupid. Well, you're looking at
am I supposed to look at pre-shots?
No.
Expected goals allowed.
Post shot. That's the if the for a goalkeeper, it's very important to see if the ball is going on target. Post shot before we judge whether the goalkeeper is letting the ball in or not.
None of that. I'm not having. Okay, I'll rephrase. The only 4-letter data set I will allow is NPXG. Everything else has to be 3 letters or less.
Fair enough. You're a big fan of your 4-letter words. All right. Well, I mean, I think there has to be a balance, right? But I think analytics definitely.
When did you become analytics? What made you take analytics more seriously?
I think when I first started, honestly, when I first had access to analytics was when I started. As soon as I saw it and then saw it in practice and actually got hands-on involved in it, which is probably around 3 or 4 seasons ago, I think it allows you to spot a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily spot just by watching games. Like you mentioned earlier, you can't watch every game, and there will always be players going under the radar. And unless those players are scoring points, then you're not even going to consider them, right? If I don't know, for example, last season, Saka, around Christmas time, he blanked like 4 or 5 times in a row. But his underlying data was phenomenal. If you watched Arsenal, then you would know that. But if you don't watch Arsenal, you would just think Saka he's fallen off. He's terrible. We must sell him. And a lot of people did sell him. The following week, he scores like a 15-pointer because the data was there. If you watch the games or you saw the data,
I definitely sold him.
You sold him. There you go. Because you're not an analytics guy and you didn't see the numbers it was looking really good.
Listen, I'm not analytics or eye test. I'm psychology.
Okay, right.
I thought he was in a mental rut.
Right. But no, it wasn't. He was just getting a little unfortunate. And these are the things that you can spot without having to watch every game. You can see when players are getting a little unfortunate. And I really, really like that because it allows you to pick differentials and play FPL in a fun way.
I want to put something to you.
Go on then.
Do you think that you're more analytical because you're a content creator and analytics is the easiest way to justify your picks compared to eye test?
100%. Yeah. I can't just go out there and say, I think you should pick this player. Why, Dan? Because I just think he's good.
No, because he looks kind of good. He does the step overs. He does the good things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously, it's not going to be that rudimentary, but you can identify like tactical setups to say, okay, this pick, for example, for me, Foden last season, it was very clear that when Foden played centrally, he was an FPL monster. When he didn't, he wasn't. And then if you could spot that sometimes, not even sometimes, Foden was playing left wing, but he wasn't playing left wing. He was playing centrally, so he was still a brilliant pick. But people was getting scared because of the lineup. But if you're watching the game, you'd understand that. Data won't show you that. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like sometimes you don't have to justify your. I mean, it's easier to justify your picks with data. Maybe when you're a bigger content creator as well, it's more challenging. But I think there has to your eye has to tell you something. Your brain has to be part of that decision.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there is a balance somewhere. But for me, I can't watch. I don't know, how many games is there in the Premier League season? Someone
38.
will know. 38 times.
Factorial? Is it factorial?
I
or is it
don't
squared?
think that's how it works. Like 38. I can't bother to work it out. How many? I'm going to go quick.
There's 20
Google.
fixtures a game week. 380 times 2, 720 fixtures.
720 fixtures. Are you right? I don't know. Let's make sure. There's going to be people like the math geeks are going to be screaming. Wait, 380 Premier League matches.
It can't be 380. Oh,
yeah, of course it is.
I worked it out. I worked it out as if there's 20 game because there's 20. I worked it out as 20 fixtures in a game.
10 weeks, 10 games, 20 teams, 10 games per week. That is so simple. Oh my god, we've just made ourselves look so stupid. Of course, it's 380, but you're not going to watch 380 games in a season. No way.
It's
not
literally
possible.
impossible because so many games on at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Particularly if in the UK and a lot of it is not even on TV.
Yeah.
And we can't advocate for anything outside of that. So yeah, and like I say, you might see an individual player has some really nice data. People aren't picking him because he's not getting the points. And a lot of people, a lot of cavemen of FPL, player get point, me pick player. Absolute cretins.
there's that meme of like the super smart guy, there's like the dumb meme, and then the smart guy.
It's like a Dunning-Kruger type
That's
thing.
the one. It's like player point, I pick. Player point, I pick. Like two sides of it. The analytics is right at the top.
Yeah. But no, team analytics for me, team eye test for you, and I think that's probably going to create a little bit of debate throughout the season. Sim, we're almost done. We're almost done for the day.
You break my heart, Dan.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Right, the final thing I want to talk about going into Game Week 1, and this is kind of strategy going into Game Week 1. Okay, finally, we need to talk about some players. They've been up to lots of business over the summer. Some have been in Germany playing some football. Others have been in America playing some football. Others have been in France playing some football.
Oh.
Yeah. Are they going to be available for Game Week 1? Well,
No.
depends who they are, is the answer. So we saw from Man City, Pep Guardiola has basically said, yeah, we've got a few players who've played international football over the summer, and we're going to slowly reintroduce them into Game Week 1 and 2. Not going to play even any minutes in the Community Shield, more than likely. You mentioned earlier that Foden's out of your team now. I'm guessing that's why.
Also, I think Saka's a better pick.
He is an absolute baller and plays for the best team in the Premier League. But
I don't know about all that. But no, Pep is a end, and I think,
good from you.
I think he's the only manager who's gonna be like super ridiculous about this stuff. I think unless a player played in the Olympics, I think there's a decent chance they start. Like I think there's a very good chance Saka starts because Arteta will play him. If he could have had knee surgery 2 days ago, Arteta.
Well, Saka's been back for a few days now, and you know Arteta has commented that Saka is going to be good for the start of the season. Like no problem there. Yeah. It's only really Pep Guardiola who's come out and said, like explicitly, players are going to be slowly reintroduced, and that's going to be Foden, De Bruyne. Who else?
Third one.
It's players who Walker. Any player who played regular minutes in the knockout stage of the tournament. John Stones as well. Yeah. So I think that kind of makes them all like non-options in a way.
Erling Haaland without Foden and De Bruyne. Yeah. This podcast is really selling not buying Haaland.
Really?
Yeah, it really is. I think there's more and more narrative to not buy him. But narrative is narrative. I can make it whatever I want.
You need narrative because otherwise, you're going to be fearful.
Yeah.
If you can create a narrative, then you don't need to worry. If you can create a narrative that Haaland is a dreadful pick, then you can sleep well tonight.
Narrative is the quilt that puts you to rest.
It's an analogy. I don't know if it's a good one, but it is an analogy.
But yeah, I mean, besides the Man City boys, I think everyone else is too reliant on their big international players.
I think Saka's fine. I think Palmer, we don't know explicitly.
I can tell you today, Palmer is gonna start Game Week 1. There is 0% chance that a new manager for a team as chaotic as Chelsea will not play their best player for Game Week 1.
That's valid.
0% chance.
Okay, what about like a Darwin who's been at the Copa America?
Okay, yeah. So when they're not like, I can't say Darwin's not first choice because he is, but like in the scenario where there's a solid enough
backup,
then it's because I think even if Darwin was ready, there could be a chance that he didn't start Game Week 1. So I think Darwin probably won't. Yeah,
that's fair. And the other player is Mateta, who's playing at the Olympic Games.
Jean-Philippe?
Yeah, I think he's another player you just.
Are France out of the Olympics yet?
I don't think so.
No, they just beat Argentina, didn't they?
Yeah, so at time of recording, they're not. But, I mean, if you're watching this, like, in 2 weeks' time, first of all, Game Week 1 deadline's already passed, so... and second of all, you might have more information than we perhaps do right this second. So, yeah, I think the only real players that we need to worry about, really, for, like, what they've been up to in the summer are Man City players who went far in the tournament, and Mateta, and maybe Darwin.
Elise?
Isn't he in the Olympics as well?
Yeah, but I wouldn't worry about him too much considering he's playing for Bayern Munich this season.
Oh, he went?
Yeah, he's gone.
Oh, wow.
How have you missed that?
That's crazy. Cut that out.
Do not cut that out. I want you deserve some shit. How did you miss that?
I just missed that. Just missed that. I was busy, baby. I was working.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, guys, that is going to be it for today's episode of Stick to FPL. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Another pre-season episode for you guys. Please, guys, by the way, please make sure you are following, subscribing, rating 5 stars, depending on where you are watching this podcast. You know,
listen, don't listen to it. If you don't like it, you can give it 4 stars. Like, I won't take it personally.
But 4
You know what I mean?
stars, it's kind of insulting. It's like
Listen,
it's almost good, but
it's okay. Like, if you hate it, if you really hate it and you hate us, just do that 4-star review. It's okay.
oh, you know what? If you hate it, 4 stars. If you love it, 5 stars. I can
Yeah.
handle that.
Yeah.
I can handle that. As long
Okay.
as there's no 1 stars.
Listen, do your thing.
Okay. Please, guys, do your thing as long as it's 4 stars or more. No, it really does help massively. Like, obviously, we're putting a lot of work and effort into this podcast, and all of your support so far has been brilliant. We're almost ready to start with the regular episodes for every game week. It's going to be starting next week. It's going to be pretty much every Tuesday, unless there's no football on that weekend, or if there's like multiple game weeks within one calendar week, then there'll be some bonus shows as well. But yeah, we should be fairly regular throughout the season, which I hope you guys are going to like. So yeah, thank you for all the support so far. Keep it coming, because it is appreciated. Final words, Sim.
Oh, I didn't think I was going to get a final opportunity to say final words.
Well, yeah, but it's funnier if you're just doing it on the spot. So
Yeah, well, we've got what? Almost 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. 1.7?
we're getting there. Yeah, we're actually
1.7K?
doing better on TikTok than we are on YouTube.
Because obviously, you got the TikTok goat on the TikTok.
That's fair.
So we got TikTok followers. I thought we brought the YouTube goat. We should be having
I need
the
to up
YouTube.
my game.
Come on, man. You need to sort it out.
Yeah.
No, appreciate everyone who subscribed. A lot of people have reached out to both of us as well. And I really appreciate the feedback that we're getting.
Yes.
Love you guys.
Keep it
Do
coming.
because of you. So keep it coming.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of Stick to FPL. And we'll see you on the next one.